Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar Scouting for Each Position in Your Team, brought to you by RFYS and AIFC. We thank you for attending this webinar today. We are all very excited to have you here with us. And RFYS aims to enable the ecosystem of sport through improvements in infrastructure, skill development of PE teachers, digital empowerment, and by creating sporting heroes. Reliance Foundation Youth Sports is a country-wide multi-sport platform for school and college athletes. I'd like to start off by thanking the Indian Federation of Coaches for agreeing to co-host this workshop with us. The Association of Indian Football Coaches is the premier association of coaches in India. The AIFC is recognized by All India Football Federation. AIFC exists to advance and improve football coaching through education, exchange of ideas, and welfare of coaches in India. The contents of these presentations are purely for educational purposes and should not be substituted for any medical advice. If you have any questions during the presentation, you may type it in the Q&A box and they will be responded to at the end of the session. Please make sure to follow our social media pages for more updates on the series and other RFIs related content. Today's topic is being presented by Narendra Vakare. He is the head of analysis and scouting at Mumbai City FC. Narendra has played for Minava Punjab Football Club and he was also the performance analyst for Northeast United FC. Welcome, Narendra, and now over to you to start off with the presentation.
Hello, Apurv. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I would just like to start by first thanking RFYS and AIFC for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be here, and in the next hour or so, I would try to contribute as much as I can to everyone's footballing journey in the smallest way possible through this webinar. So, as you guys know, this is the second part. Everyone, maybe, or some of you might have been in the first part where Thongboy took you through what's scouting, how it's done, where it's done, and all the other details. Today, I would just like to take you guys all through some of the specifics that you could look at in every position. Just 4 or 5 pointers, not digging deep into anything, just some outliners that might help you and to get some players in for your teams. So let's begin with the goalkeeper from the back. So everyone knows that when you're looking at a goalkeeper, it should be tall, all the physical attributes. I don't want to get into all of that, as everyone knows all of it. Just to begin with some important points going into the game, how football is changing and how important the goalkeeper is becoming when you want to build from the back or when you want to play with the ball from the back. So I think distribution with the hand and feet is one of the biggest traits a goalkeeper can have when you want to play in such a style. I think to give you an example, when you're building from the back, it's very important how the goalkeeper chooses to play a short pass or a pass in between the lines or a long pass. The decision making of the goalkeeper, be it with the hand or be it with the feet, it can really help a team to be better when they want to get out from the back. I think second, it's the command over the defense or the communication with the defense and the team. A goalkeeper is someone who can see everything, what's going on from the back. And for example, if your team is attacking from the right, your fullback is gone up and your winger is on the same side, and you lose the ball on top, there's a big hole on the right. The goalkeeper can clearly see all of this from behind, and he can command or he can communicate with the defense to move, for the center back to move, for your fullback to move, and to maintain a very good shape when there is a transition. Moving on to the positioning in defense. What do I mean in positioning in defense? So for example, when you're pressing high and your team is high up on the half line, your defensive line is in the half line. So a long ball over the defense or behind the defense can be very, very dangerous. A goalkeeper, if positioned well, can even play as a sweeper and clean up those balls or get those balls and start building for your team. Positioning attack can be very tricky. It can be very controversial, or can be very important. A goalkeeper can give some good angles to pass for your center backs or for your sixes when you're in trouble, or he can be the one who you can take advantage in terms of superiority or in terms of having a man advantage when you build from the back. So I think positioning in attack is as important for a goalkeeper as in defense. And I think goalkeepers, when they make a mistake, is a big loss for the team. Either you can lose a game. So the personality of the goalkeeper to get above all of this and to believe in his abilities, that is the confidence. And a goalkeeper, be it five goals up or you be 1 goal down, it's important for him to maintain the discipline of the game style that you guys or your team has installed in him. Or if you're looking for a goalkeeper, you need to be aware of how he is when your team is 1-0, 3-0, or when you're down. It's very important to even factor in those things. I think that's it for goalkeepers. Moving on to fullbacks. It's a very dynamic
Narendra,
position.
sorry, just to come in.
Hi, Apur.
Hi. So just to come in on goalkeeping itself, there's one question I get asked a lot. Also, it's very much a prevalent topic. We have the likes of David De Gea, and we have on the other end of the spectrum we have Edison as we know it. Now, as we have progressed, as football has progressed, we've seen more and more keepers, the top keepers, being very comfortable with their distribution with feet. How important is has that become in modern football, and is that something, for example, for example, if a keeper is really good with his handling and with his shot stopping skills, but doesn't quite have a good distribution with his feet, is that something you also look into when you're scouting for a keeper? And I'm talking in general.
Yeah. In general, if you're looking at a game style where you want to build from the back, it is definitely one of the factors which need to take into account of how the distribution is. But that shouldn't be the only factor. This is what you should realize on a long-term basis. I think it's also very important for your goalkeeper to be very good in handling with the ball. For example, even if he's not great at distributing the ball from the back, if he loses the ball in a very crucial position, he would be at a position to stop the opposition from scoring if his positioning or if his handling is really good with the ball. But if you have a goalkeeper who's excellent with the feet, but not as good as in the other factors of the basic goalkeeping stuff, if he loses the ball there's a high chance you can concede a goal. So there are contrasting views on this. If you want to play safe, if you want your goalkeeper to play just parallel passes, and if he's not comfortable in playing the through or in between the line passes, you can build your team around that. It's not necessary that you need to weigh the pros and cons. Whatever suits you right, I think you should go that way.
And do you think any of these attributes are coachable? For example, I mean, you can show
Definitely.
films and
So definitely, if you go to see some players, and when you come back, knowing that these are the goalkeepers available, and what are the areas that you can improve, what are the areas where you can compromise, and there would be some areas that are not, you cannot compromise. You need to have those. So you as a team or as a coach, when you get the players, I think it's very important to weigh the pros and cons. This is
thank you
all I
so much,
can say.
Narendra. I think
Yeah.
that was the answer I was looking for.
Yeah. I think moving on to fullbacks. Fullbacks are one of the most important positions in today's world. I think they are players who are very dynamic, who can contribute equally to your attack, but need to be also very comfortable while defending. So my first point would be defending 1 versus 1. For example, if you go to a college game or if you go to a school game, not much of video analysis is available to feed back to your players. So what would I look at a fullback is the first 5 minutes, how he evaluates the winger. If the winger is good if he is left-footed playing on left and he's very good on going on the outside, I would force him to go inside. that determines how smart your fullback is or how well he can evaluate the situation in 1 versus 1 defending. Just to give you one example, I think quality in the final third, now that many of the fullbacks have the responsibility of going ahead, the quality in the final third becomes very vital. Quality in the final third just doesn't mean very good crosses or very good finishing. Also, what is important is how the fullback evaluates when to cross, when not to cross, and when to keep the possession. That can also contribute to quality in the final third. Also, the timing of the crosses in between the defensive line or in behind the center backs, all these things also contribute to the quality in the final third. I think it's a very vital thing you should look at when you go to see a fullback. Moving on to positional awareness in attack. What do I mean by positional awareness in attack? I think it's more about, to give you an example, you are building from the back, your center back doesn't have a support. So it's the timing you decide when to come back to support your center back, and when does your center back doesn't need support and you can go high and six can come down and you can create the space wide. So by positional awareness, this is what I mean by giving you a small example. By positional awareness in defense, I mean if you're tucking inside to leave the space wide for the winger, or if you're worried about the winger and you're going out. So what is more important is a team can't score from the wide areas. You need to penetrate from the middle to score goals. So what are the most dangerous balls? It's not the balls which go directly wide, but it's the balls who penetrate between the fullback and the center backs. So it's the awareness about such small things, I think. And then moving on to athletic, I think pace, definitely. If you are defending against a winger who's very fast, you need to have pace to match that 1 versus 1 defending, one of the factors. If you want to go up and down in a game, you need endurance and strength. Strength doesn't only mean you need to be physically tall, strong, you need to have big muscles. You need to be competitive. Competitive is the real word, what you mean by strength. And moving on to brave, I think you need to be brave when you play as a fullback. You need to take the risks of going forward. You need to take the risks of not putting in a safe pass always, because that's the best thing you can do. If you are a safe fullback, you're not contributing anything when you go ahead, or you're not contributing enough. So if that's something, you need to be really, really brave.
Narendra, hi. Just another question. Just an emphasis on when you
Hmm.
go for scouting a player, let's say, and
Yeah.
you see he has these qualities, but he's not playing in his position. For example, he could be a winger, but in
Hmm.
your mind, uh, I mean, I just want to ask you, do you think that do you look out of position for players that might suit another position? For example, if you look at a winger, can you
Yeah.
identify that he would be probably a better fullback, but maybe because his coach doesn't know how to play him, he's playing. So do you look for players out of position also and who fill these criterias?
Yeah, see, looking into our system, there is a high possibility a winger can also play as a fullback. To give you a small example, we have Vignesh. Vignesh started out as a winger. I saw him in Ozone when he was playing second division I League. We got him here 3 years back. And slowly and steadily, when Sergio came in last year, he integrated him as a fullback. It's more of an evaluation for the coaches than for us, but there's a very similar set of similar set of characteristics. If you are playing a 4-2-3-1 with 1-6 coming in, it's almost like a winger.
Another question, just about that. How much of positional awareness in terms of intuitive positional awareness, right? Does that can you develop that if after a while, for example, you see players like Ashley Young, Victor Moses changing to that fullback position much later in their lives. So do you think that approach also is easier because it's a winger transitioning into a fullback, and are they prone to making more mistakes if you switch in the initial stages, and how do you weigh the pros and cons there?
I think it's more a coachable thing. You can definitely coach the player, but you need to give a span of time, like some time to give him what he wants. It's more of a coach's thing to give him time to make him understand that this is what is required more. If he doesn't cope up, that means he cannot play as a fullback. He is someone who can only play as a winger. But if he copes up, if he manages to integrate those fine things which a fullback needs to do, and can still go in an attack and be himself with what he was before, I think that is how you can definitely convert a winger into a fullback.
Thank you for that, Narendra.
Yeah. Let's move on to the center backs. Yes, definitely. All of us know that the height and all of those physical factors. Again, I want to leave that aside. First thing I want to really focus on the center backs or the aerial dominance. Even if the center back is a 5'9" or a 5'8", even if he's very good in his jumping or his leap, he can definitely have an aerial dominance, even if the striker is a 6 feet or a 6'1". So the height is a factor, but not the most important factor. It is debatable, but aerial dominance is something you look at in your center back for sure. Defending one versus one, I think it's more of a composure thing. It's more of a thing where you don't go to ground very often, but you evaluate how good can you evaluate your your center forward, and how can you nullify his strengths. This is something maybe we can look at in a one versus one defending. Also, center backs nowadays, when fullbacks go up, they have to cover the wide areas. How good is he in the wide areas, and how, for example, how much, if a player is in the wide areas, how much can he delay for the other guys to come back? That could be one of the traits in one versus one defending. Defensive positioning, I think it's a very important factor. To give you an example, is in a transition, your team wins the ball, you kick the ball ahead or you move quickly ahead. It's very important for your center back to quickly go ahead and be in line with the other guys. So that can be an example of defensive positioning. Attacking positioning, I think attacking positioning is something which is very crucial when you build from the back, or when you want your center backs to kick long, or maybe find space to have a long shot diagonally to your wingers. It's very important because, for example, if your goalkeeper has the ball and how quickly the center back opens up, that could be one of the attacking positions you could consider. If he stays inside, you don't give an option to your goalkeeper, but if you move quickly wide out, you definitely give an option to your goalkeeper. That could be one of the things in attacking positions. Moving on to the ability to be involved in the build-ups. Definitely, it it's more of an instinct thing, or it's more of a passing ability thing for a center back, of how he can play the ball in between the lines, or how good is he to find your strikers behind the lines or the wingers diagonally, or to play around. I think it's one of the abilities you definitely need to evaluate looking at a center back. And then, like the goalkeeper, personality. A defensive mistake can cost you a game, definitely. And it's the personality and the confidence and his ability to bounce back is the real personality of a center back. These 5 points are generally what you could look at.
Narendra, hi, just another point on this. Do you also look into the on-pitch, on-ground communication of a center back? For example, we hear about some people, some center backs who are loud. Like, I think that would be an extension of his personality itself. So, um, I mean, do you prefer that? Do you look into those things when you look at a center back? If he's commanding it from the back, he's vocal enough on the ground.
Yes, definitely. I think that could also be one of the things we look at. Just I do not want to include it in the 5 pointers because it's a very obvious thing that you look at. You want your center back to be a leader. You want your center back to guide your midfielders, your wingers on when to press, how to press, to cover, to guide your fullbacks to come inside, to go out, to go to press, and all of those things. It's a very vital factor, definitely.
All right, thank you.
I think moving on to the defensive midfielders. I think this is one of my favorite positions. We call it the number 6. Number 6 is a very, very crucial position if you are a team who wants to play from the back. Also, if you are a team who launches long balls and you want your number 6 to be very strong in the middle and win the second balls. I think it's the most crucial part about number 6 is his ability to operate under pressure. What do you mean by this? I think it's the number 6s are always being pressed, are always being hassled by the opposition so that they can win the ball higher up the pitch. It's his ability to create the space, to shrug off the defender and to move into space and to get the ball and to move it ahead. This is what you mean by ability to operate under pressure. Passing quality, of course, passing quality is one of the biggest things for 6. Maybe it could be limited to short passes in between the lines, and long passes behind the fullbacks or behind the center backs. Not necessarily you look at killer passes in a number 6. It's more of a thing which goes in the players in the advanced positions. But definitely passing is a very crucial part of a number 6 to get the ball from behind and to keep progressing it ahead. His ability to dictate the pace of the game. I think when you're 4-5 ahead, you need to at some point slow the pace of the game. And the number 6 is the most important player to control the pace of the game. To give you an example, ability to read the game and protect the back four. To give you an example of this ability to read the game, similar to like I told you, your fullbacks and wingers go ahead, there's a big hole there. The 6 can recognize the space and fill in there, or when your center back goes in there, he can fill in the center back space, and guide his 8 to come back and to fill his position. So this is the ability to read the game for him, which is very crucial to give a balance to your team. And in terms of protecting the back four, when the opposition is trying to play passes in between the lines, passes in between your tens and the nines and the eights, he's the one who would protect your back four. Of course, he's always there in front of the back four to also stop the teams from taking shots from central areas. So that is what you mean by protecting the back four. Discipline. This is a very, very, very crucial factor for a number 6. He needs to have a lot of discipline in his positioning. Number 6 can't just go on the wide areas, helping out a winger and just leaving a big hole in the middle. It is a very crucial position which can make or break the balance of a team. Yeah, that's it. I think we move on to the number 8.
Just to interject again, I'm sorry for being so inquisitive and keep
No,
pestering you with questions, but this is one that is personally, I can relate to because I progressed from a central attacking midfielder later on to a defensive midfielder. And now this is coming personally. How important do you think is physicality in terms of defensive midfielder? Because I've seen in India, of course, you don't have those huge physical specimens as we see in Europe. So we have to kind of formulate our own strategy regarding positioning and different things. But I understand do you do you give it much weight to the how physical a player is when you select someone for a defensive midfielder position?
Definitely, physical side is something we definitely evaluate, but I wouldn't personally look at a number 6 who's making too many fouls and is not winning the balls and not contributing to my transitions or just making too many fouls. I would prefer a player who's physical but who's clean, whose tackling percentages are far more than giving away the fouls.
Hello?
Positions. Yeah, I
Are
think
you,
so.
are you there, Narendra?
Yeah.
I think your video just froze. Again, just just to add to that, so basically what you're trying to say is even though physicality is important, it's not essential for a defensive midfielder.
It needs, the physicality needs to be in the right way.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We can go ahead, Gurmeet.
Moving on to the central midfielders, or you can even call it as a 8. These are the positions which are a bit advanced to number 6s. I think 8 is the one who can, progress you after getting out from the back, or can also come back and contribute to the build-up when your 6 is frozen up. So it's his ability to operate under pressure. I think moving on to the passing, I think passing similar to the 6s, he needs to have a varied range of passing. Very important for 8s is to find the angles to receive the passes and to move forward. Can't always go back. It's one thing that we look at is how can he move into space and can move forward. A pass behind, getting out from the pressure and again going into pressure makes no sense. So it's the angles where he can receive the ball and go ahead, and the killer passes. You expect your 8s to go ahead a bit and provide those killer passes behind, or for your or for your strikers and your wingers or your number 10s who are making runs into the space. I think awareness in attacks. What do you mean by awareness in attacks? I think it's the moment when you shrug off the defenders and you see a space. How would you get from the back of your defender and move into that space, play a 1-2 and go behind again? And also the reading of the game. It's very important to 8 to create the space, to create the space for others by dragging out one defender with you. That's very important. Awareness in defense. What do I mean by awareness is in defense is to protect. Not really to protect. I think it's more of a transition thing where you are aware that if you lose the ball, if you see that someone else is taking a position to fill into the position of others, or to quickly move in to press, or to how to regain the ball very quickly. I think also what is important is your awareness when you set up for a press. How well do you cover the angles? How well do you complement your 10 and 9? All those things. I think energy to play box to box. Of course, you expect your 8 to go up and down, up and down, up and down. The energy levels are very important. How well can he sustain over a period of time? It's a fitness thing, but still, his desire to go up and down, his desire to come to take the ball, to contribute in the defense, it's very important. And just like the 6s, the discipline. You, as an 8, you need to be very disciplined. You can't just go wandering off here and there. You need to know what's your role and you need to stick to it.
Okay. Hi, Narendra again. So just on a little bit to add to that, as a young child, I would say around the age of formative years of, let's say, 12 to 15, the willingness of these attacking center midfielders, when I say, is usually kids usually like to score a lot of goals, and there is opportunity. You see games go, the one side games go to like really high, which go for 5-6 goals, and so me being a center midfielder also, I had this eye for goal, and that created a sense of pride amongst your own teammates that you want to score more, and that influenced in a way where I found it harder to go run back than to run forward. Whenever we were going forward, it was almost like I found a source of battery somewhere inside me. When it was going back, I was like, okay, I'm really tired. So when you scout players, do you look into these things where is willingness to run back for someone important for you, or you think that with a proper system uh, could be changed, in a person, because there are certain things that you might look at are coachable. Like I said, there are a few things that you can coach, and some certain things which probably stick with a player. For example, Ozil never changed his running back despite all those things. And just to give you an example, but how important are these things and coachability, and how do you approach these things?
I think what can be evaluated is when the players are fresh. I think you could really evaluate his desire to come back. Then if he gets tired and if he doesn't come back, it's more of a fitness thing. I think to see the desire and to see the awareness is more important than evaluating the game at the 80th minute or the 90th minute.
Okay, very well said. I think that makes a lot of sense, because also I think another important aspect that you just brought up is also conditioning. For example, some players are just not, I guess, conditioned. So I think that is what you're trying to imply as well.
I think it's more of a mental thing. Even if you are conditioned well, if you're training well, but if you don't have that in your head that I don't want to do it, you will not do it.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
Moving ahead.
Attacking midfielders. I think it's the missing puzzle for all the teams. The number 10 is one of the crucial positions where you want to create and score goals. So I don't want to get into the pointers that he needs to score goals. He need to create chances. That it's very obvious for a number 10. I think it's his ability to operate, especially in spaces where you could break the lines, for example, where you could just go on the outside, or you could just recognize that your center forward has pulled the center back down and there's space in behind for your 8 to play the 10. Those type of things. Passing ability. It's very the most important thing are the final passes for a 10. The the decision making in you could see on the fourth point. I also want to touch on this while we talk about passing. I think the decision making is also very important. When to pass, how to pass, and why not to pass and keep the possession of the ball. That is something which is very crucial for a 10. Also for you to keep possession, also for you to pick the right passes and to score goals. It's very important. I think is awareness in defense. I have put this point especially because 10s are very crucial when you set up to press. It's his ability to communicate with the striker, or his willingness to initiate the press or to cover the angles, which is definitely something which needs to be looked at. And energy. Your 10 has to be energetic. He he is the live wire of your team. He is someone who's the creative mind of your team. He needs to be full of energy running. I think that's it for a 10.
I think you can move forward, Gurmeet.
I think winger. Wingers are someone who can, maybe for me, make or break a game. If the wingers work, maybe you create more opportunities, maybe even go on to score in a game. So one versus one attacking. I think this is a very crucial part for a winger. One versus one, just not to run with the ball and to take on the defenders, but also to recognize the time, when to go, when to stop, when it's two versus one, whether to protect the ball and to keep the ball. That is one thing you should also evaluate looking into one versus one. Crossing ability. Crossing can be very speculative. A winger can be very good at crossing, very good at bending the ball, very good in putting the weight on the crosses. But if the crosses are just haywire, it makes no sense. So even when you are good at crosses, it's very important to see the timing of the crosses, the areas where he intends to cross, if there are players there, the the ideology behind all of these things. It's very important to see. Just because he has a very good left foot doesn't mean he can cross the ball well. I think pace and agility, I think these go hand in hand. If you have pace and agility, even if you have pace, there's space behind the fullback, you can just put the ball and run. But if you have agility also, even in tight spaces, you can just drop a shoulder and move, and you can go behind players. I think this is one thing you should definitely look at. Awareness in attack. What do I mean by awareness in attack? I think it's the timing to decide when he wants to be wide, when he wants to come inside, also when to make the runs in between the fullbacks and the centre backs. That is what I mean by awareness in attack. Attitude in the defense. I think this is a very, very important aspect, especially when you know the opposition also has fullbacks who are very attacking and you need to go back and help your fullback. The attitude is, even I lose the ball, I just give it up and I just don't come back. You need to have the right attitude to come back, retain the ball, and then again keep the ball or begin a transition. I think it's a very important aspect we need to focus on. And similar to fullbacks, wingers need to be brave. They need to take the risks when it's needed to challenge one versus one, to go inside, take a shot, cross in good areas, and not just play safe.
Hi, Narendra. So, another
Yeah.
question we've got here is, when we speak about 1v1 attacking or pace or agility, it is mostly it is relative. So, for you as a scout, I think another aspect of scouting for you might be, and you can just elaborate on that, is how important is the level of opposition also when you're gauging a player, when you're judging a player, especially someone who you're looking at for 1v1 attacking or pace or agility? How important is that, and how important are competitions like, ourselves? Only if you take Reliance Foundation Youth Sports, how important are those
Mhm.
high level competitions when you talk about scouting and scouting against good teams?
Mhm. I think it's very important for a winger to evaluate your fullback in the first 2 to 5 minutes. If you don't have enough information on him, it's very important for the winger to evaluate if he can take on the defender inside, outside, or just to evaluate his strengths and to find a way around how he can beat him. That's the real test.
So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, ask you rather, is
Mhm.
do you look when you're looking at opposition also? I mean, you might look at someone who's doing really well in their grassroots competitions, or junior competitions. Maybe we
Mhm.
spoke about age band just before the webinar started, how certain people have growth spurts which are earlier. I mean, they grow
Mhm.
earlier than most people. So how do you neutralize that, and what span of time do you usually scout these players for to give you a good enough sample size to come up with a decision?
See, what I think, what this is just my personal opinion. What I believe in, if you have uh, a player in your under 16s who is much better than any of the under 16 boys you have, I think he needs to progress to the under 18s rather than to kill his progress in the 16s just because he's 15 years old. But if he's better than all your 15-year-olds, definitely he needs to go to a more competitive space. That's the under 18. I think that's how gradually the boy needs to progress.
Thank you for that answer, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think we can move ahead. Gurmeet.
Moving on to strikers. Everyone knows striker needs to score goals and he needs to be good at finishing, good at heading, good with both the feet. I don't want to get into all of those things. I want to concentrate on some specific things. It's the movement of the strikers which is very important. Movement to create that yard for yourself, or movement to shrug the defender behind you and come in the space to link up with your tens or to link up with your wingers. That's a very crucial thing when I mean, what do I mean by movement? Uh, One versus one in attacking. I think it's looking at a different perspective in one versus one attacking. I think when you receive the ball, when you are one versus one with your center back, it's very crucial to to see if he can drop a shoulder, create a yard to shoot. That's also a one versus one situation which you can see. Just to give you an example, not just the dribbling going past, using his hand and all of those things. I think pace and strength. It's I think it goes hand in hand. If you have pace and if you don't have strength, or if you have strength if you don't have pace, it doesn't really come out to be the best. But if you have both, I think you could be of a real threat to the defenders, especially when there's a high line, you have pace, balls behind. Your pace can just explode you onto the goal. For one more example I could give you is when you have both, when you are played a pass in a 50-50 situation. If you have pace, you can just come in front of the defender, use your strength to shield him, and just play a 1-2 and spin and go behind. That could be one of the examples for pace and strength. If you look at awareness and attitude in defense, I think just like you, it's important to score goals. Your striker is your first line of defense when you are pressing or when you lose the ball and he comes back in block defending. I think it's very important. His attitude of working hard, just like the last point, the work rate. It's very important to be very generous in your effort for a striker because it can really make you win balls very high up the field. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Narendra, for that presentation. Now we will begin with the Q&A session. So in case you have any questions pertaining to the topics we just touched upon, you can type in your questions in the Q&A box. And अगर आपको हिंदी में क्वेश्चन पूछना है, आप हिंदी में भी टाइप कर सकते हैं Q&A बॉक्स में. हम सारे questions अभी लेंगे. So we have 20 minutes with Narendra where he will take up most of your questions. So please do type it in. आप टाइप कीजिए Q&A बॉक्स में. And जैसे आपका question, if we come across it, we will ask it. So, Narendra, just before we begin with the session, I just want to touch upon your journey as a scout. Now, you've progressed from being a player for Minerva Punjab, and now you worked for Northeast United before this. Now you are a scout. So, when we speak about the general life of a sports person, we only think about till the time he's a player. Now we have so many venues for you being a prime example of that. uh, what do you have to say about your journey that could inspire these people that there is a world beyond playing and coaching as well, and how can someone take up scouting as you have?
I think it's very important to to keep studying or to to see what's there in the market other than just playing. So what I did when I was playing, I also used to look at the analysts that were there in our team, the guys who were doing the scouting, and that is something which really got my interest, and that is how I started talking to them. I started learning from them, and I started doing courses online. I started getting in touch with a lot of people of how they do this, how they do that. Then I started making not really a database, but I started following leagues in India very closely. I started creating, what can you say? I started creating a database of players, a database of player movements, a database of what are the what are the agents in India, how do they operate. So I just started researching on a lot of things, and that is how I eventually got interested towards analysis and scouting. And there was a point in my career when I had to make a decision to either stick to playing or to switch. And I what it's a funny thing. I decided that whatever comes first, if it's a playing contract or if it's a analyst or scout contract, I would take it. And I gave interviews in Mumbai City and Northeast were very quick to revert back to me and offered me a contract as an analyst. And I joined there, and that is how my career as a player ended. And I shifted to analysis and scouting. It's been good so far. It's good to learn from a variety of coaches that I have been with, variety of clubs that I have been with. I can just say one thing: it's a never-ending process. Everything changes every day. It's never the same. After a month, there is something new always happening. So you need to always be on your toes, keep yourself updated on what's happening. Try to be very humble, try to learn whatever comes your way and not just shy away from it because it's if you don't learn, you're not going to progress.
Thank you for that, Narendra. Another question we have, a very interesting one actually, just an extension of what you just said. How does, when you work under different coaches, how important is the coach's input, and how drastically does it change your scouting approach from a coach to coach?
I think for what is very important to evaluate here is what is the philosophy, or what are the principles or fundamentals of a club. If the club has principles of fundamentals according to how you want to play, according to how you want to operate, the change in coaches doesn't have a great impact on scouting. There would be minor changes here and there, but not a drastic change. For example, I could give you an example of my journey. For 2 years, I was working in a system where it was more of a counter-attacking system. And now for the last 2 years, we have shifted to a more possession-based attacking football. So for me also personally, it has been a transition. To drastically change the players in your team, it's near to impossible. You can make minor changes, you can change a lot of players, but not the whole squad. Indian market has changed drastically. It's not like players are free every 1 or 2 years. Since the last 2-3 years, players have started going into long-term contracts. So to evaluate the movement of players, it's not easy. But I have got to learn two different styles of football, definitely in these 4 years, and it's been great so far.
Thanks a lot for that. Another question from Anand Vardhan here. He's asking us, how do you judge the personality of a player that you've been scouting, and how important is that for you as a scout?
See, judging of the personality, I think some factors you can see on the field, but some factors definitely you need to interact with the player. I think interaction with the players, it's very important after you scout them. It's very important to know how they are as a person. It's not just, it can be two opposite personalities on the field and off the field. So I think it's not just on the field, it's also off the field interaction, which is very important in these things.
Thank you for that. Another question from Mr. Farhan here. He's
Mhm.
asking, is it important for a player to play in multiple positions, and how important is it to find these players who you possibly think can play in more than one position?
I think it's always good to have players who could play in multiple positions. it's always it's always an asset to the team. I think it's not important that he could play multiple positions if he's very good in that position, if he's very comfortable, and if your manager thinks that he's the best in there. The manager won't move him into another position. I think he would keep him playing there. But from a youth perspective, I think there have been a lot of transitions from wingers to fullbacks, from strikers to wingers, from strikers to even centre backs. I think it's also more related to the demands in the market. A player can always see that I'm not getting enough chances as a striker. Let me see if I can play as a winger better. So he's on a trial, or if you're going to see, he's playing as a winger. So there can be things like this.
And another good question here is by Sachin. He's asking, are there any certain red flags that just put you off, even though doesn't matter how skilled they are? Are there
Yeah,
certain red flags that you have?
yeah, definitely. I think for me the biggest red flag is the attitude. It needs to be right towards your teammates. If you lose the ball, you can't just go lash out and start bashing the other player. You need to be supportive of your teammate. Also, it's a I also look at players who have just lose the ball and they just don't contribute anything to the defensive part. These are some of the red flags for me personally.
Okay, thank you for that. Another one, this is by Arvindan. He's asking, do you have any tools or books where you could study more about football, or which you can help use to understand and analyze the game?
Yes,
Something.
definitely. There are a lot of websites you can go to. There are a few scouting websites. There are a few analysis websites where you can go sign up for courses. They can take you through a very good module, even from your house. You don't need to be attending something, but you can gain basic knowledge from some of the websites. You could just Google things. There are a lot of websites nowadays which are out there, which could definitely help you. And then maybe you could start doing something in your academy to start off applying that knowledge which you gained online or through some courses.
Okay, another important question. This is, I think, from a player. His name is Arjit. He's asking us, when you are aware that there is a scout watching you, should you have a different approach, or should you play your natural game? Because he says he feels a little nervous when he has a round, so he tries to sometimes do extra. So, what is your advice for someone who's a budding player and who has scouts come to watch him?
I think I think you should just put that off your mind. I think you I think you should just focus on the game. When I was a player, when something like this used to happen, I used to just avoid getting into such things. I used to avoid people speaking that, oh, see, there's a scout there who's come out to look for you. I would just corner that to one part of my mind and not be conscious. When you start getting conscious, definitely it's going to, you're going to think that if I do this, he's going to like me. If I do that, he's going to like me. And you just start diverting from what you are as a player. I think it's the mental side where you can just prepare yourself to flush out all these things and just focus on what your job for the day is and what your team has asked you to do.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question is from Rohan Shah. He's like, do you also evaluate a goalkeeper and how he handles a mistake?
Yes, definitely. I think this is one of the important aspects which can make or break a goalkeeper. It's definitely how strongly they come back after they have gone down or put their team down. A lot of things in terms of these things are mental. I think if a goalkeeper comes out very strongly in the next game, you could see how strong he is. You can't evaluate a goalkeeper in just one game. You need to give it time. Goalkeepers are someone who need to be tracked over a span of time through their bad phase, also through their good phase.
So again, just an extension to that, you just spoke about goalkeepers need extra time to be monitored and to be evaluated. Do you have different kind of sample sizes or time required for position wise? For example, do you in general need more time, like you said, for goalkeepers, which might be a shorter time for other positions? And if that's so, could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
No, see, it's more about how convinced you are. It's more about how much you have seen them playing against different systems. It's how much you have seen them reaching their maximum potential, and you just now feel, okay, he can't play better than this, and I'm done watching. I have to make a judgment on based on whatever I've seen.
So it is more the quality of the
It
sample size rather
fluctuates.
than the
Yeah,
quantity.
it fluctuates. It's not, you
Oh,
can even judge a player in 3 games. Like, I can give you an example. I saw Mehtab Singh for 3 years. Every year I thought, let's get this guy, but we kept on delaying it. We kept on delaying it, and we finally got him after 3 years.
so you required. So what is your if there was like a consensus on the average time you scout a
Mhm.
player for, what would it be approximately?
So if you want to gradually progress a I League player, for example, a I League player into ISL, for me, I would keep a span of 2 years of watching him in I League. For
Okay.
example,
And
I
does that
wouldn't take a
vary with
play.
age? Does that vary with age? Like
Yeah,
you said, you
definitely. I think it definitely varies with age. I think if you're for me, if this is your first year in I League, and if you have done well, we need to see the consistency going into the next year.
Okay, and I think we have just time for one more question, and this is by Danny. He's asking, "Hi Narendra, if you are scouting multiple players in one position, uh, do you look at them having different characteristics that complement other members of the team also? So how much is it respective of the other members of the team when you go to scout players?"
Can you repeat the answer? Can you repeat the question? It's. Hi Apurv, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Okay, sorry. So he's asking if you're scouting multiple players in one position, and you may have to scout. Do you actually scout them relative to the other players of the team rather than just sticking to what, like the 5 pointers you had? Do you also have to change your approach once in a while to fit to make the team chemistry a little better?
I think yes, definitely. I think yeah, I think what you can do here is when you always go into the market with respect of what players you have in the team, you always look for an upgrade to what you already have and to have a better version of someone who's already there in your team. I think it's very important to always keep upgrading your team if there's a possibility rather than just sticking to what you have. And if someone is providing something different to what you already have in a good way, in a better way, which would make your team better, definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Narendra. I think that was a delightful session. Thank you so much for hosting such a wonderful and informative webinar. I'm sure all of us gained some valuable knowledge from it. If you have any last words, any parting messages to our participants today, I'll pass the floor over to you just for your final word.
Nothing. I think it's been a pleasure to be here. Again, I want to thank RFYS and AISC for this opportunity to get me here and share some piece of knowledge that I have with every one of you here. And it's a great job that the Reliance Foundation is, I think, doing across the 32 centers they have all around the country in making players come out, giving them chances, giving them a platform to evaluate themselves, to prove themselves. I think it's a great initiative. We need more initiatives like this for us to be sporting powerhouses very soon. And I think that's it. I think thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Narendra. I'm sure all of us have gained some valuable knowledge from it. And a big thank you to all the participants for attending today's session. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you back with us very soon. Before you leave the session, we request you to kindly fill out the feedback form that you will be seeing at the end of the presentation. On behalf of the entire RFIS and AIFC families, thank you once again. We hope you all have a great weekend ahead. Come on, India, let's play. And this is me, Apoorv, signing off. Thank you so much, and a very
Thank
goodbye.
you guys. Thank you.